Hello.
Hey, everybody. I'm Leslie.
I'm Johnny.
And we're the Green Room, YXE. Thank you for joining us on this Wednesday, February 10th.
Very cold Wednesday here
in Saskatoon. Yes, we're coming to you from Saskatoon. So yeah, thanks and welcome. Thanks for showing up and welcome to our third show. And we're going to get to it right away here. And thanks to everybody that tuned in last week to listen to Dave Bedini's awesome stories and Kirby Warchenko. And if you want to check that out, you can on the No YXE YouTube channel. So what's happening? Oh, we're going to talk about the Super Bowl.
Super Bowl. There's been quite a reaction to that performance by the weekend.
I haven't seen the reaction at all.
Well, it's mixed. It's either, like everything nowadays, polarized. It's either they loved it or hated it. Right?
Oh, really?
Yeah. So.
Yeah. See, I wanted to like it, but I just felt it was a little kind of like, because we love The Weeknd. He's awesome. Mm-hmm. But I just felt it was kind of like Rhythm Nation
by Janet Jackson.
Mm-hmm. And so it was a little kind of dark, like 1984 almost, and with the the bandaged jockstrap faces. It was just I don't know.
Well, they weren't jock straps.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We had this discussion. They weren't jock.
Yeah. I could try putting a jockstrap on your face, and you'll know the difference.
Okay. No, I don't. No. I think I can. No.
Anyway, I kind of liked it, except for the part when he was banging around in the hallway there, and some references were made about it being like the Toronto Path. People just don't know where the hell they're going down there.
Yeah, it's true.
But other than that, I was entertained by it. I like his songs. His hits are good. I like his hits. So.
Well, believe me, there was some cool energy to it. Mm-hmm. With everybody together and moving together. Like, I love that kind of stuff, but it just was a little kind of, I wanted to be uplifted, not just kind of like, oh man, like this is where we're all heading.
One thing that I did learn is that the NFL does not compensate artists for the halftime show.
Right.
They cover production costs apparently, but they don't pay the artists. And apparently The Weeknd went over by $7 million and he coughed it out of his own pocket.
Yeah. That's pretty amazing.
If that's 100% true or not, I don't know exactly.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving right along.
So we have two awesome guests on tonight. We have Scott Roos. He's in Prince Albert, and he's the founder of Saskatchewan's newest music editorial called NSMZ, North Saskatchewan. Okay.
Do we say Z or Z here? I didn't know.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know. North Saskatchewan Music Zine. And we'll talk to him about how it came to be and his journey to get it to where it is today. And but first off, we're going to bring up a guest that we're really excited about. We've known him for a long time. His name's Andy Curran, and you may know him from the Canadian rock band Tony Hatch, or one of his projects, Caramel or Drug Plan, and of course his solo 1990 hit, No Tattoos. So Andy has recently been working for the El Macambo Records and has spent time on the industry side of things, working for Canadian greats Rush. So we have tons to talk about with Andy, so we're going to bring him on now. Hopefully.
There he is.
Hello, Johnny and Leslie. Great to see both of you.
It's good to see you,
too.
So
good to see you. Thanks for coming on the show and welcome.
The last time we saw you was in Hamilton.
I came down to This Ain't Hollywood to see you guys play, and I loved it. Yeah, no, it's great to see both of you, and I'm really digging. It should be Johnny and Leslie's rec room because I'm loving all the wood paneling back there. Like, I just want to come. I just wish I was there in person with you right now, right? And there's a nicely stocked bar in the back there. That looks nice.
And there's a turntable and albums and
we had this thing about the bar too. Johnny wanted the bar there. It's like, get rid of the bar, but we've had people say that they love the bar, so we're
I know. Johnny, are you turning into your parents? Come down to the basement. I got the bar. I got the turntable.
Yeah, it's not a wet bar though. It's not a wet bar. You still have to go up to the kitchen to get your ice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, very, very nice to be on show number 3, and great to see both of you virtually. Anyway.
Yeah, you too, man.
It's great to see you too.
So, it's funny when you know somebody, but you know kind of what they've done in their career, but you don't know some of the finer details. And I just want to catch up here with some people who may be watching about Coney Hatch, and sort of the thing is we want to do is kind of sort of talk about maybe from a musician's perspective about how that was for you in like 1982 being in a rock band. First, I want to clarify: were you guys considered rock or metal?
Well, we got looped into the metal scene because of touring, but definitely I would consider us much more hard rock. But yeah, we had no problems being called metal. Where did you guys go? I can't see you anymore.
You're featured now, Andy.
Okay,
You're not needed.
Okay. No, but you're right, Johnny. Like, we've known each other for so long, you, me, and Les, and we've been label mates, and we had the same managers and stuff. And most of the time when we were hanging out, it was on a social basis. So I wasn't really going into detail about my career. But the Coney Hatch ride. And it was primarily from about 1980 to 85. And when Dave Ketchum and I formed the band, we were essentially a cover band. And like most bands, we started inserting original material into the set and trying it out. But I think we really, look at that. I know, look at the crop top, right?
About there.
Yeah. Not only is there a crop top in that picture, but I have a whammy bar on my bass for anybody that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
But what I was going to mention is that, when we started playing the clubs, I think we kind of got a reputation. People, this was before AC/DC became very popular, and our lead singer at the time, who eventually left the band prior to us making our records, was a big AC/DC fan. So we played a lot of AC/DC and Highway to Hell and Let There Be Rock and Whole Lot of Rosie and the Jack and all of that kind of stuff. And people were like, "Wow, this." We got a reputation as being a bit of an AC/DC cover band, but we played Stones and Scorpions, and we played the odd, like I was a big new wave band, so we played Cars and Eddie and the Hot Rods and things like that. But it wasn't until
some Aerosmith in there too, like
we definitely we played like Walking. Like Aerosmith was one of my all-time favorite bands. But it wasn't really until Paul Van Mortel left the band and Carl Dixon came in, and we were playing at the Gasworks, that Pi Dubois, who is a lyricist for Max Webster, stumbled in one night. And I've told this story before, but I playing from the Gasworks stage, I saw this guy scribbling paper, and I thought, oh my God, somebody's coming down to review our band. We're getting and we didn't have a contract or anything. And we were just really a cover band that had some originals. And I went down in between one of the sets and introduced myself, and I said, "Hey, my name's Andy Curran, and I see you're writing a newspaper. You're writing some stuff down. Do you work for a newspaper? Are you writing an article about us?" He said, "No, my name's Pi Dubois. I was just scribbling some lyrics. I don't know if you've ever heard of the band Max Webster." And I love Max Webster. And he said to me, "I think Kim Mitchell would really like your band, and I'm going to tell Kim about it." And that was it. That really changed the trajectory of us, because we went overnight from basically playing clubs in Quebec and in Ontario primarily, but all the way out west, all the way to Vancouver and back, and played lots of places in Saskatchewan too. But instantly took us into the studio and produced a demo, and it was like a rocket ride from that point on. Got signed on with management with Ray Daniels, who managed Rush.
Oh, Andy froze.
Uh-oh.
Went literally And it was just like, what the hell is happening? Like, it was such a blur. So 1980 and 84, touring with Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Ted Nugent, Cheap Trick, Edgar Winter, all the bands that I grew up on. And I was just like, I was pinching myself, like, what is going on? But in between all of those giant tours that Ray got us on, we would come back and we would play Nag's Head North or Tony's East and Tony's West. But the big difference was we were selling them out at that point because we had a couple records under our belt. It was an amazing rocket ride. And I was 22 or 23. So all I cared about was, do I have enough gas money? Where's the party tonight? And, where's the party, right? And not too much of a business acumen at that point, but it was quite a ride.
Yeah.
No kidding.
That's so cool. Was one of the things I was going to talk to you about was where the bars. I came to Toronto in 1984, and at that time I'd heard that the bars, there's a lot of rock bars in the core on Yonge Street that were sort of starting to fall off and closing down.
Yeah.
I mean, the Gasworks hung in there for a long time. And anyone here in Saskatoon that has never been to the Gasworks or had the opportunity to go, they sold the beers in like the giant sort of quart-sized bottles.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, which was pretty awesome. I guess you could kind of compare it to a Bud's kind of in a way.
Yeah.
Right.
But and did you play Rock and Roll Heaven too? Is that another place?
Absolutely. Rock and Roll Heaven came a little bit later on after the band had broken up. We did a couple, we used to, my friends teased me about a couple of the reunion gigs, and the very first, Coney Hatch broke up in 85. And then a very dear friend of mine passed away from spinal meningitis. His name was Tony De La Hunt, and Tony played in a Toronto hard rock band called Harlot. And he was a guy from the UK. And so when he passed away, he had no family here. So I talked to the boys in the band and I said, hey, why don't we do a benefit for Tony and his family and see if we can get him home to the UK to be properly buried in his homeland. So that's what we played Rock and Roll Heaven. And Johnny, that from the minute we played that one, I think those reunion gigs, which would have probably been, I'm gonna guess here, I'm loosely guessing, maybe early 1995 or something like that. We made more money playing Rock and Roll Heaven and NTEX and all those clubs on the reunion dates than we ever did. But the Gasworks was a big part of it. The Young Station on Queen Street, Rondon Tavern. You could easily play a half a dozen clubs in the GTA alone, and we played them all. And my favorite memory of the Gasworks is playing on the stage and looking out and seeing my brothers fighting the bouncers and going, but not being able to do anything. I'm playing bass and I'm going, oh, that's my brother. They're fighting, right? And came home and my brother had a tooth missing and he was like, yeah, you guys were really great tonight. I go, what are you doing fighting the bouncers at the Gasworks?
Oh my gosh. No kidding.
Yeah. So, working with Kim Mitchell at that time in your life was probably, like you say, a big thrill because I, like you, was a big Max Webster fan.
Yeah.
As well. So.
Yeah, Johnny, the very first time I saw Max Webster, I'm also a Rush fan, which is ironic that I ended up getting to work with those guys. But Massey Hall, when they recorded All the World's a Stage, the opening band was Max Webster. So I that was my first glimpse at Max and bought their records after that. But having a guy that talented to just take the reins and teach us about songwriting and arrange our songs and help us with our sounds. And the first Coney Hatch record, not a lot of people know about this, but we went into the studio with Kim. I'm going to say it was probably in October, and recorded the entire record. And he said, let's break for Christmas. And we came back in January and he said, yeah, we're scrapping everything. And we were mortified. We were like, what do you mean? And he's like, I don't like this, I don't like that. And we re-recorded everything again, moved the equipment around, changed the sounds. But having him as a mentor was huge. Just like, a guy that talented, and he really took us under his wings. Those are some great shots there. Lynn Shelsky's hair on his chest, and we like to dress up a lot. I had
Yeah,
a
it's
lot
good
of,
fun.
I
It's
spent
good
a
fun.
lot of time shopping at Le Chateau. Let's just say that.
Right. Well, you could wear it. You could wear it once and then throw it away from
Right. Or just share it with your girlfriend, you know.
That's right.
Afterwards, right? Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I mean, like so this week I got some new speakers down here, so I'm cranking Coney Hatch for the last week or so, and I'm kind of listening to it. And I'm going, there's not a lot of difference. Now I'm going out on a limb here between the sonically sounds of what TPH was doing at the time and to what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
Just maybe a little different lead guitar approach, and you know, Carl's vocals, right?
Yeah.
Other than that,
I would agree, Johnny.
yeah. So it was just a different presentation. It was the same energy, same kind of, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I was struck by
Pursuit. I love Pursuit of Happiness, and I think the similarities that you're talking about is capturing the rawness of what the band really is like on stage. That first album, especially with Kim, and then I really tried to get back to that on the Coney Hatch 4 album when we reunited. I said to the boys, that was the spirit of the band. That's what we sounded like. And then the second album with Max Norman, who produced Ozzy Osbourne, and the third one started to get a little bit more polished and slick, but I much preferred the sound of the first record, which you guys had. You know, I think of I'm an adult now, and the sonics of that not that much different than Coney Hatch. And you're right, Carl was a little bit more like a Lou Gramm singer, but I think maybe Mo and I shared the fact that we were just maybe more of an instinctual vocalist as opposed to a schooled vocalist, you know?
Right. Yeah. Well, whatever it was, it all worked together. So, we want to just move along here, I guess. But also when you said about the marriage of the metal and the new wave, and that was the kind of thing that was happening early to mid '80s for a lot of hard rock bands. They were being influenced by even Van Halen. You know, in 1984, there was that, you know, keyboard sort of stuff in there as well. But you move on. Then after that, you get to No Tattoos, and that, living in Toronto at the time and watching much music and radio, that was everywhere. That was huge for you.
Yeah. You know, Johnny, Johnny and Les, I feel very lucky on that one because I've got to admit, after Coney Hatch broke up, and you, because you guys are musicians, you know this, at the time when you're in a band, especially when you're young, you never envision the end. You think this is going to be forever. So I thought I was going to be in Coney Hatch forever. I thought, these are my guys. This is my band. I founded that band with Dave Ketchum. So when it all came apart in 1985, I was like, oh my God, what the hell am I going to do now? And much like the community of friends that you guys have built over the years, I thought, okay, I know a couple guitar players. I can call on them. And I just started wondering, and like, maybe I should try this on my own. Maybe I should do, you know, some songs on my own. So that No Tattoos record, I never wanted it just to be called Andy Curran. You know, it was originally titled Every Dog Has Its Day. And near the end of Coney Hatch, there was a lot of politics with the U.S. record company saying, we don't want two vocalists. The vocalist, the most talented vocalist in this band is Carl Dixon. He should be singing all the songs. And you know, Carl can sing a phone book, much like Leslie could, and it would sound great. So I wanted to call the album Every Dog Has Its Day. And look at the giant hair on that one. I love that too. But Tom Berry, who was my manager at the time, said, no, it's going to be called Andy Curran. It's going to be a solo effort. And again, you know, the timing was really right. We did a video with Don Allen that got added to Much Music, and then we did a second one, and that got added, and the airplay was just going through the roof. I did a bunch of opening dates with Kim Mitchell and Rick Emmett, and I toured for 18 months off that record, and had 2 Juno nominations and ended up winning 1. So, you know, you could arguably say that, you know, I might have seen a little bit more success as a solo artist than I did with Coney Hatch, but most people know me as the bassist and the guy who sings Monkey Bars.
Yeah, we were gonna ask you that, like, why did you not continue on as the solo artist, because you had so much success?
Well, that's a great question, Les. And what happened was, at the end of that ride, At the Juno Awards, I sat with Tom Barry, and I don't know what was going on with the label at the time, Alert Records, but he said, congratulations on winning the Juno, but I don't know if I can do another record with you. And that's the last thing that you think you're going to hear at the Juno Awards after you win one. And I was like, wait a second, I need to do another record right away. So all of a sudden, the momentum and the stops and starts, which you guys are very familiar with, any musicians out there, just when you think things are going great, the rug gets pulled out. So all of a sudden I had no record deal, believe it or not, after that. So, I floundered a little bit, put another band together, got a publishing deal with Sony Music. Tom Barry introduced me to the guys over at Sony Music, and I did the Soho 69 record. Maybe in hindsight less, I should have just called the band Andy Curran, but that Soho 69 was a continuation of that No Tattoos record. And I never really envisioned myself as a solo artist. I always like to be part of a band. So that's why I said, I don't want to be Andy anymore. I just want to be Soho 69, right? So
yeah, I get that. Yeah.
So that's the main reason why I didn't. So the Soho 69 on Hypnotic Records, another sort of, the honeymoon was over before we did a video for Kiss My Boots, which got a lot of airplay on Much Music, and Hypnotic kind of ran out of cash too. So I was like, oh my God, here I am again. I just did another record, and then I have no record deal again.
Yeah.
And that kind of segues into the whole Caramel story, which I know, Johnny, you wanted to hear about.
Yeah, well, I'm not surprised. Nothing surprises me anymore about music industry stuff when they tell you that you can't be the singer in your band that you started, and congratulations, but I can't have another record with you. those are just, I'm not surprised by anything anymore in the music business. But
and folks don't know that on the outside. Yeah. We're on the inside, and they're like, "Oh man, what happened to your band?" Or "You're so lucky, look what you had," and they have no idea about the roller coaster.
Is breaking loose
of the struggle every day, right?
Yeah.
So, but here's a guy that puts a band together. It's Kim Mitchell, gets a record deal. There's 3 albums. Does a solo record, gets a record deal. Puts another band together, gets a record deal. Puts Caramel together, gets signed to Geffen in America, and that's just awesome. That's like I think every guy's dream. So I'm just going to start a band. And here's a record deal.
Johnny and Les, I've been extremely blessed. I have definitely got some angels looking out for me upstairs, and I've been incredibly lucky. And our manager that we shared, Doug Dombrowski and Bruce Moser, they were instrumental in getting me that deal on Geffen, which was by far the biggest deal in my life. And ironically, the day that we're talking today, yesterday, I finally got the Caramel record out on all digitally. It had never been released digitally before, and so that's out on all on Apple and Spotify and Amazon and stuff like that. And that was quite a ride. And an interesting story behind that was our friends Doug Dombrowski and Bruce Moser at the company Could Be Wild. They believed in it so much. They said, well, let's just put this out on our own, and we'll see if we can get you some airplay and see if we can attract some labels and get it. And my God, they got a freaking bidding war going on that. Like that was quite incredible. But yeah, I have to agree, like whether it's fluke or luck, man, I've been pretty lucky with deal after deal. Ray Daniels, the manager of Rush, said to me, "You're like a rock and roll cockroach. I don't know anybody that's had more managers and lawyers and record deals than you, Andy."
Well, I mean, there is timing in this business. There is timing, but I mean, you got to have the skill to back it up too.
And you're just such a great guy, Andy. Yeah. So people just love to work with you. And I know we met through Doug, and we love Doug so much. Yeah. And
I don't know, did you our third record that we did at Iguana, did you hook us up with that studio, or
Yeah,
was that before our time?
I think so. My friends over in Iguana, the guys that ran that studio, it's a great. Johnny's talking about a really great project studio in North York and Toronto, and it had this awesome. It's still there. It's an awesome SSL board, and not the biggest studio, but just one of these rooms that you walk into and you put your music in and we play it, and you go, oh wow, it feels really good here. So I did introduce you to the guys at Iguana, and I did record a bunch of my material for the subsequent record that was originally called Drug Plan, but when Doug and Bruce got us a deal with Drug Plan, the label said, you can't call your band Drug Plan. Nobody's going to play a band called Drug Plan. And I was like, well, why? And it's, oh, it's a drugs, it's drugs, it's dangerous. And I said, yeah, and that's what rock and roll is. But anyway, they wouldn't let me call the band Drug Plan. And they said, why are you calling this band Drug Plan? And I said, well, I got a drug plan. You've got a drug plan. Everybody's got a drug plan. Like, why?
There you go.
Right? So anyway, I changed the name of the band to Leisure World, and we recorded almost I think we mixed everything at Iguana, and I was happy to introduce you to guys to them. It's a great little studio.
Well, so Dale Penner ended up coming and mixing that record for us. But when we started working at Iguana, they still had the Neve console there.
Oh, okay. So it had the Neve there. Nice.
Yeah. So we tracked on a Neve, and then they sold the Neve and brought in an SSL. So we were the last band to track on the Neve and the first band to mix on the SSL. So it was the best of both worlds,
Yeah. You were the guinea pigs.
Yeah.
And and Johnny, you and I could segue this interview into this chat into a whole different area, because I met the guys at Iguana through hockey, and Johnny and I play a lot of recreational hockey. I think Johnny's a little bit more of a hothead than I am, but and I would like you to see you put a jock on your head. But Vic, who runs the Iguana Studio, is a great hockey player, and that's how I met those guys. And a lot of networking, ironically, that I've been able to do over the years is meeting guys playing hockey. I love it. Yeah, hockey and rock and roll are two of my great passions, and I know I share that with you.
Yeah. Well, that's what we were going to ask you. Yeah. You're still skating.
You're still skating at any time.
I am. I prior to COVID, I was skating 3 times a week, mostly evenings. And then this morning, I found a rink that was 5 minutes from my place that a bunch of parents got together and froze in the middle of the soccer field. So I've been out 2 days in a row on this rink, and there's a couple nets and stuff, but I'm trying to get out and skate as much as I can, because I'm still waiting to get the call from one of the NHL teams for a skinny right winger with a high rising slap shot.
Yeah, right. I'm still looking for a short, tough guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how much time you got tonight, but
I'm good to chat a little bit more if you want to chat a little bit more.
I'd like to hear, that story about the tragedy that Carl had, and
yes,
on the website it says, someone held the phone up to his ear while you were on the other end when he was in a coma.
Yeah.
You said, if you get out of this, we're going to do another Coney Hatch album.
Oh my God.
That's 100% true. So I'll give you a bit of background onto that. So despite the fact that Coney Hatch had broken up and got together many times, the breakups were never nasty. We were always cordial with each other. It was like, I don't know, maybe the equivalent of being in a marriage where you're like, okay, we're still going to be friends, but I don't want to be married with you anymore. And so I had still stayed in touch with Carl, and we were buddies, and we had done some reunion gigs. And then I get this call out of the blue from one of his family members, and he had gone down to Australia, and his daughter is an actress, and she was doing some filming down there, and they asked Carl if he would write some music for it. So he was down recording, and I knew about the trip and stuff like that. But apparently what I've been told by Carl personally is when he left the session, it was very, very late. And as you guys know, as musicians, it's not uncommon to leave a session at 2 or 3 in the morning, and you're just you're zombied when you walk out of there, right? So he said he basically temporarily forgot that he was in Australia and that you're driving on the opposite side of the road. So he came out of the studio, got in the car and drove down the street on the wrong side of the road, went around the corner, head-on collision with a truck coming in, right? So by all rights, not be alive today, was airlifted and flown to a hospital. I forget what city in Australia. And he had multiple fractures. He had crushed orbital bone. I know that they took pieces of his, it almost sounds like a $6 million man story. They took pieces of muscles from different parts of his bodies to build up where he had been very badly injured. And so I got a call saying that he was in an induced coma, and the doctors were encouraging the family to have him reach out to voices that might be familiar. So they said, if we put the phone over to you, Andy, can you talk to him? And I said, absolutely that, Johnny. I was like, hey, Carlos, man, I don't know what the hell happened to you down there, but you got to pull out of this, dude. We got a lot more rock and rolling to do. And keep in mind, Coney Hatch hadn't played in ages, nor did I have any plans of putting the band back together. I was just like, what can I say to this guy? I love his spirits, right?
Yeah.
And so I dangled the carrot. Fast forward, he flies home. They have a little reception for him. He's in a wheelchair. His head is shaved. He's walking with a cane, like in really bad condition. And he says to me, I'm going to get better, dude, and we're going to play those shows that you spoke about. Like, I had no idea he was going to remember it from the coma. And we eventually got invited by Y108 in Hamilton to play a show opening up for Gord Downey's band. And that was the first time that Carl had been on stage. And at that point, we said, hey, like, why don't you learn how to walk first before you do a show? Because he was on a cane and stuff like that, right? And that show spawned interest from labels in Europe that heard about us and said, hey, we hear you're back together again. We want to sign you. And this guy called me from Italy. And I was like, another gift from heaven just drops in my lap. I was, and the guy's name was Serafino, and he spoke a bit like a gangster from The Sopranos. He goes, I want to sign Coney Hatch. I want to do a new record with you guys. And I said, dude, I hate to burst your bubble, man. Like, we don't have any new songs. We just play our old catalog. Well, you need to go to the studio and write some material. I will call you, but make no mistake, it has to be vintage Coney Hatch. I don't want Foo Fighters or Queens of Stone Age, right? So I was like, okay, I can, you know, I can give you those riffs till the cows come home. So that's that Carl's injury and recuperation spawned the actual Coney Hatch 4 record.
That's cool.
Wow,
that's what
awesome.
A great story.
That is a great story.
That's like a Hollywood movie right there.
Yeah,
I know. And you know what? I think Carl has a pretty successful side career as a motivational speaker, because what that guy went through to just fight through those injuries and get back up. And so he goes all over the US and Canada speaking about recovering from these accidents and just persevering.
Yeah, well, the live shows that you have on YouTube from 2018 and 2017, they're a lot of fun to watch. So it's good.
Certainly didn't hurt his voice. The guy's at the top of his game. I don't know what happened, Les. It might have even made him a better singer.
Right, okay.
For sure.
There's so much to talk to you about. You've been the guy on stage, and you've somehow, like every musician, you got to have something to back that up. Now you just can't. It's like, how many people are actually full-time musicians these days?
Yeah, not many that I know, Johnny. Yeah.
You know, so we've all had to supplement. But you got to go from being in Coney Hatch and Caramel and Drug Plan and Soha 69 and Andy Curran to actually working.
Yeah.
For your heroes or your idols, or I don't know, they're my heroes and idols, but I know you're a fan of them as well. But to working with Rush, and I'm guessing that comes from Anthem and your connection early on with Ray.
Yeah, it does, and I'll tell you a quick story about how that came to fruition. So, you know, as musicians, again, you kind of go, okay, you know, what else can I do besides just playing in this band? And I've always loved being in the studio. It's at the very first time I was in there, I wanted to know what all the knobs and wires and buttons and processors did. So production was something I was always really, really interested in. So when my two daughters were when Monica and I got married and my two daughters came along, I started to get away from playing live and out there touring and concentrating on producing a little bit more. And people liked the sound of some of the solo records that I had done, whether it be Drug Plan and Caramel, that I was really involved in the production on. So I started doing production with young indie acts, and I would bring them into Ray Daniels and Peggy Ciccone at Anthem. And I would say, you guys need to listen to this. And I'd be out there hawking these projects that I did, saying, you know, you got such a great label here. Why don't you release, you guys were always champions of Canadian bands. Why don't you release this record? And why don't you release that record? And it kind of led into me getting really aggressive with them. And they would be like, oh, we're not signing anything now. And I said, well, give me my own imprint then. Call it Andy Records. Just give me a chance. It'll be Andy Records distributed by Anthem. I'll put my money where my mouth is. And then Ray said, I'll tell you what, why don't you just come over and be the A&R guy?
There you go.
I'm not going to release it. Yeah, I'm not going to release your records, but you know, maybe it's time for you to get off the road. And the funny story about that too is he said, you should stop playing. You've got a family now. You don't need to be on the road and spend more time with your family. And I never spent as much time on the road that I did until after I joined SRO and was out in Australia with the Tea Party and all over the world with Rush and Big Wreck and Stephen Page and The Reason. So I did far more traveling. And at one point I said, hey, what was that promise you made me about not traveling? Like, so much for that. Now I get free, you know, crackers and beers at the Air Canada Lounge. I've traveled so much. So it was good. It was the natural progression, and I'm thankful again that I was able to just still be in the music industry, and I've I learned a ton there. And my God, working with Geddy, Alex, and Neil was just a full on pinch me. Like, it's not too often you get to work with your heroes, and just the most respectful, nicest guys in the world. And I have to say that about all the artists that I worked with when I was over at Anthem. They're all really, you know, my chapter was Stephen Page and the guys in the Tea Party, even though Mr. Jeff Martin drove me nuts. I love the guy, man. He was awesome.
Yeah. We did a little mini tour with the Tea Party of Southern Ontario. I think 5 or 6 dates with them. And
yeah,
you know, going into it, you think, oh my God, he seems like he's unapproachable. But he was like the nicest guy.
Yeah. And fabulous musicians. Like, the musicianship in that band, I've been very lucky, you know, when you think about and just scale away songs and everything else, but you think about Rush and you think about the Tea Party or Ian Thornley or Stephen Page, and you go, my God, the musicianship in all of those artists is incredible. And you know, to stand behind and work with those guys, pretty easy. You know, you don't have to do too much convincing of anybody when you're working with the caliber of artists that I got to work with.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Well, I know that you've come and you've helped us in the studio with our Christmas record. You helped us get the mixes going.
Yeah.
You've always been very helpful to us, and really want to thank you for that. In case we haven't.
Yeah.
In the past.
I love you guys. I think I love what you've done from day one. So I'm honored to be on the show.
Oh yeah. Well, before we go though, you got a new gig.
Yeah.
You're at the Alma Combo Records now. Is that still? Is that?
Yeah. So I got introduced to Michael Weckerly through a couple different friends. My brother John met Mike down on Bay Street, because Mike's a finance guy, and so was my brother. And then Greg Godovitz worked with Michael for a while, and they were talking about opening up the Alma Combo and doing some renovations on it. And Michael wanted to start he's quite the entrepreneur. When I met him, he said, "Okay, you need to come in and help me. I'm building the Alma Combo, and I'm going to have a label, and I'm going to have a publishing company and a merchandising company." I was like, wow, dude, it's like, slow down. Let's attack one at a time here, right? But one of the funny stories I'll tell you, I said, so a record label, you really want to start a record label in the 2019? Are you sure you want to do that? And he said, yeah, and I've signed my first band. I go, well, wait a sec. Didn't you just say you wanted me to help you start a label? You've already signed a band? He goes, yep, 5440. They're my pals. So that was a pretty, what a great way to start a label with a band like 5440 underneath your belt, right? So Mike is very close with Neil Osborne, and they had a record, Keep On Walking, and it was finished and it was in the can, and they were looking for a home. So I went up to Universal and spoke to my pals up there and got a distribution deal for Michael for El Macombo Records on Universal. And subsequently, we signed a very young band out of Windsor called Hutch, Huttch, and we did an EP with them. And then we most recently signed Kim Mitchell on Kim's new record, The Big Fantasize. So it's a very, very small boutique label. And I poke my nose in some of the live streaming stuff that's going on down there. Happy to be involved with Gordon Lightfoot. Just did a live stream show at the El Macombo. Andy Kim Christmas special happened over there. We had Big Rec do a live stream, and Michael begged me. He said, you have to bring Coney Hatch in there to do something." So the Coney guys did a live stream. So I mean, COVID's really put a dent in what can happen now at the venue, but the label's an ongoing concern, and I love working with Mike. He's the energizer buddy. He's just like full of ideas.
Yeah. Yeah, so it kind of goes almost full circle from your story to having Kim Mitchell be interested in you, to having him on your label now.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what, Johnny, it's interesting you brought that up, because when I was leaving Anthem Records, it was apparent that Kim had this record that was finished, and it wasn't going to go out on Alert Records. And I had thought to myself, oh my God, imagine if I could ever help Kim in the way he helped us. And so maybe it has come for full circle, because I just said to Kim, this record's too good, like the world needs to know about it. So in the little way that I was able to help, maybe it was a bit of, I don't know what you would call that, in a karma or something coming back, and that I was able to do something nice for Kim.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. I want to rewind a bit too, because Beyond the Lighted Stage, I see your name on that project as well. So I just want to make people aware of that Rush movie called Beyond the Lighted Stage. If you look close, you can see Andy's credit on the back of that as well.
Yeah.
I think there's a small thing in there. If you blink, you miss it. I appear in the movie at one of the pre-production rehearsals.
Oh, did you? Oh,
yeah. But I'm okay. I was okay to be in the background on that. The Guitar Hero and Rock Band stuff with Rush, and the documentaries, they came to me to help on a lot of that stuff. Like I said, it was just like, there were days I went home like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm actually working with Rush. This is nuts.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Cool. Are you working with Alex right now on something? Is that something?
Yeah, so there's an interesting project that the long story short is, when I was at Anthem Records, I was asked to be a judge for an online music contest, and the guy who was running the contest was out of Vancouver, and he said, would you help judge? These young artists are going to send in some material, and one of the artists, the prize is they get a Zoom call with you. And I said, well, it's a pretty crappy prize, but and they said, no, you can mentor them and tell them amazing stuff from your ride. So anyway, long story short, they send you 10 songs and you rate them from 1 to 10. And that's how there was a panel of judges, and they decided which artist was going to be 1, 2, 3. So I got a call, and they said this young woman by the name of Maya Wynn. She's about 21 or 22. I think she had maybe 3rd or 4th place. She won the privilege of having a Zoom call with you, and she's going to be calling you on Zoom. So anyway, I talked to her and her mom on a Zoom call, and during that call, she said to me that she, as a musician, you guys will relate to this, she had lost her collaborator as a co-writer. And I said to her, Maya, that's part of the ride. You need to go out there and you need to meet people. You need to go to shows. You need to kind of connect with other musicians. If you lost your main songwriter, collaborator partner, you need to go out and find another one. And she said, well, I looked you up on the internet. Can I do some writing with you? I was like, I wasn't expecting that. Okay. I said, well, I said, sure. I write all the time. And I said, I have some really trippy, weird stuff that is not rock. It is not rock. It's like Massive Attack or, some weird British ambient band. And I'm going to send you some bed tracks. And I just thought, Andy, you're being nice to this young lady, send her some stuff. And she immediately sang on it and sent it back to me. And I was like, oh my God, this girl is like really, really good. It was trippy and lots of different weird harmonies. And so Alex Lifeson, the guitar player, and I were out at lunch one day, and he said, how's things going other than work? Like, I know you're doing a lot of label, executive stuff, but you're still writing? And I said, yeah. And I told him the story about Maya. And she lives in Portland, Oregon. And he goes, oh, wow, that sounds really interesting. I want to hear that. Will you send that to me? So I emailed it to him. And the next day he called me back and he said, I want to play guitar on this. So again, I'm like, what? Wait a second. I could have never dreamed that Alex Lifeson would, and keep in mind, Johnny and Les, like the entire ride of the 15 years that I worked with Alex and Geddy and Neil, never ever did we talk, or never ever did I cross the line about, do you want to collaborate? Should we, let's get in a band together. I just never went there. I'm part of the management, the label, and I never ever scratched that itch. Alex said, I want to play on this stuff. So I said, I'll send you the stems. So I sent him the stems. And the one song turned into 2, turned into 3, turned into 5. And the next thing I know, we've got 5 or 6 songs that are finished. And one of them, we just got a music supervisor put it into a Netflix show called Tiny Pretty Things. I think it's on Netflix. It's about ballerinas that are cutthroat. And anyway, there's a song on there that they said, we love this. And the music supervisor heard it. Now, I haven't played it. I just sent it to a bunch of music supervisors to say, hey, this is really different. It's not mainstream. And Alex is all over it. His guitar playing's all over it. And he subsequently met Maya. She came to Toronto and he loved her.
Oh, wow.
Awesome.
Okay.
And it's really more about Maya. We're not trying to start it's a project band that features Maya, really.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. She's a sweet girl and a really, really talented vocalist and songwriter.
That's another great story.
Wow,
that's so good.
That is, it's awesome.
Well, we want to thank you for joining us
kidding.
tonight. I know we got one more thing to talk about.
We have so many things to talk
we'll
to
have
about.
to do a
We have to have
part
you back
2,
again.
catch up.
Yeah, let's do chapter 2 because I'm cut into your other guest time. Sorry.
There's always something going on with you, which is always nice to know about. But being that we're in Saskatoon now,
Yeah.
when we ask people from the East that are on talking with us, any specific memories about playing in Saskatoon, be it with Coney Hatch,
Okay, so
on the road with whoever you were here with?
Okay, so I have 2 great stories about my time in Saskatchewan. One of them is with Stephen Page. So when I was at SRO Management and Ray Daniels called me, he said, hey, Stephen has left the Bare Naked Ladies and he wants to do some gigs. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, there is either a Saskatoon or a Regina folk festival. Which one is it? There's a big folk festival.
Regina Folk Festival.
Yeah.
And Saskatoon has the Jazz Fest.
Okay, so it's the folk festival. So Ray said to me, Stephen is on his own. I would like you to go out with him, and you should hang out with Stephen and go out to the festival. And I said, I'd love to. Stephen's an awesome guy. So Stephen and I flew out there. Beautiful weekend in Regina, I think you said, right? And there, I now remember the river going through in the setting. And Stephen is the direct support to Glenn Campbell that year. So I'm hanging out with Stephen, and that was the first day that I saw the Good Lovelies as well. They were on the bill, and that was the first time I heard them. And I was like, oh my God, I love these guys. And I went up and introduced myself to them, and I said, if there's any way I can help you guys, please let me know. But So Stephen said, I'm going to go have a nap. Do you mind just like trucking around by yourself and you come back a little bit later? And I said, sure. So I start walking around backstage, and Glenn Campbell is hanging out his trailer, and he's smoking a cigar with his cowboy boots on. And I'm like, oh my God, freaking Glenn Campbell's sitting there, right? He's got his cowboy hat on. He's just done a sound check. And I go, Glenn, excuse me, would you mind if yeah, come on up, son. He's smoking. Come on up, son. Come on. I said, my dad loved you. I remember seeing you on TV. Would you mind signing my backstage pass for me? And so I have a folk festival pass signed by Glenn Campbell, one of my favorite memories, right? And then the other one was quickly that when Coney Hatch was coming through, and I think I mentioned to you, Johnny, the club is there a club called Riley's, or it used to be called Riley's?
Yeah, there was, yeah.
In Saskatoon, I believe, right?
Yeah.
So if I recall, so we're opening up for Iron Maiden. The drummer, Nico McBrain, cut his hand or something, like he on a knife cutting some food, and the gig was canceled. So our manager called and said, well, you guys are off tonight, but I just booked you in Riley's. So, and by that point, we were well through the tour, and we were really good friends with Iron Maiden. So we just called them up and said, hey, you guys were playing Riley's tonight. Do you want to come over and jam with us? So we played Riley's, and the guys in Iron Maiden came up and jammed with Coney Hatch. And anybody that was at that show would know that it was just off the hook. People went absolutely crazy in this tiny little club that Iron Maiden were getting up, and they're playing like ZZ Top Tush with us and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Oh,
We did the fill-in gig at Riley's.
Wow.
Oh, those are great stories.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
thank you for that.
there is a summer festival here called Rock the River.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of it. It's
I've heard about it.
And a lot of classic rock bands play it. And I think you guys, you gotta source that out and get a hold of Scott Ford here.
Well, Johnny, listen, I'll give you a commission if you can get us get us that gig. If you can be our agent out there.
Okay, sure. See what I can do. Anyways,
thank you so much.
I know your dinner's
Andy.
probably
Yeah,
you're
cool.
cold by now, but you got.
No, I've got past awaiting. As I said, my wife Monica sends her love to both of you guys. It's so awesome seeing you again. I miss you guys, and we had fun being label mates. I've watched you guys ever since you were in Pursuit of Happiness, and I love that you're still doing music. So thanks for having me on your show. And I wanna get to that rec room. I really want to get to that rec room.
You can see that.
It's
You and Monica back here.
Hey, what's this photo?
It's a quick photo when we played This Ain't Hollywood in Hamilton. You came down to dinner with us.
And I'm wearing the same toque.
Well, I thought
It works
No,
for
you got multiples. I know you do.
I do. Yeah.
Oh, one more picture. You and Carol there.
Yeah, that was when they had me slick my hair back and give me like an Elvis jacket. And that shot was taken at the diner, the same diner that Quentin Tarantino featured in Jackie Brown. And I'm thinking, what else? Kill Bill. That was a really cool old diner there. And and that Allison Dyer was the photographer on that. We loved working with her.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, we're gonna have to do this again because we could just talk and talk
we
and
could.
talk.
We have so many more questions.
Hopefully,
for you.
people find it as interesting as I do. So,
Yeah.
It's always
Lovely seeing both you guys. And anytime I'll come back for a repeat visit anytime.
Yeah, give Monica and the kids a hug. And,
Yes,
we'll
absolutely.
see
Send
you
her
again.
love. Send my love to Monica. We have to talk again real soon.
Absolutely. And I see that Commander Harlow said hello. I believe we did some.
Hi, Greg English and Kathy Allen.
Yeah.
Saying true.
I think we did some demos with Kat and with at Harlow Studios. But anyway, guys,
another time we have to talk about that.
Yeah, stay safe, and I look forward to seeing you in the Hammer again. If you come back with the band, I'll be there.
Okay, you bet.
Awesome.
I'll try not to throw my underwear at you next time, Leslie. Okay.
All right.
Okay. See you.
Hey, Andy. Have a good one.
So
Wow.
that was awesome.
Yeah,
We're
what a
gonna
good catch up that was.
yeah, it was a great catch up. So we're just gonna go and bring out Scott right away here.
Yeah.
And he's been waiting so patiently. So we thank
There he
him so
is.
much. So our
Look at
next
this guy.
guest moved to Saskatchewan from Yellowknife. But he's got an interesting story on how Saskatchewan's newest music magazine came to be. And we would like to introduce you to Scott Roos, the founder of NSMZ or Z, I don't know, North Saskatchewan Music Zine. Scott, thank you so much and welcome to the show. And thank you for waiting and for being patient. We went very long with Andy. We hadn't seen him or talked to him in a long time. So
yeah, it happens sometimes when you have guests on podcasts and stuff. They just, you're like, oh, I gotta ask him this, I gotta ask him this, I gotta ask him this. I can think of times where I talked to Philip Anselmo for like 40 minutes and he just kept talking and talking, and I was like, this is so cool. So I totally get it. And I mean, you guys go way back, which is it's neat to see those those old school connections coming out. It's nice to see that. Like you were talking about the North Sask Music Zine. I mean, man, like, where do I start? I mean, I think I'm always a person, I need to like be always doing new things in the music industry, so back in 2012 I started a radio show. And, just building and bridging contacts that I made through the radio show over the years, I was able to, get into print journalism after, started podcasting for a while and sort of experimenting with that. I was really fortunate, I think, when I was living in Yellowknife in the north, that when you have like a lot of guests on of various stature in the music industry, like guys from Kiss, for instance, they'll be like, oh well, I've never talked to anybody from Yellowknife before. I know where it is, but you're the first journalist I've ever talked to. So there's that kind of sexy aspect of the north where people they want to know where it is, or maybe they've seen like Ice Road Truckers or something like that. So building those stepping stones and working my way up the ladder of audio journalism over the years was a challenge for me for a while. But then I wanted a way to be able to reach people differently than what I've been doing. Like sometimes doing audio podcasts, it becomes a little niche. So I just saw a need in this area in Prince Albert and Saskatoon and points north to start something to support, independent music primarily, and build up a lot of the great music that happens, in our area, and give these musicians a chance and a voice and quality journalism backing them up early on in their career, to just, give them a bit of the rub,
Yeah, that's awesome. And here we got a cover up of the most recent issue, I believe.
Yeah, that's Jake and Ira. Yeah.
So you got your start. We talked before. You got your start on a website for Roadrunner Records.
That's taking it all the way back. Yes.
Yeah. Called Sign Me to Roadrunner Records. And there's something about you guys would write reviews for the people that submitted music.
Yeah. So it was a public site where I could take demos of my music and I could upload them onto the site. And then I would also have a reviewer profile created at the same time. So the idea was bands would review bands if they wanted to, or people could just log into the site and check out new music and review it themselves. And then the website had a scoring system. It was they had a top 10 for alternative, they had a top 10 for heavy metal, and they had a top 10 for rock. And depending on the genre that you put your own music into, there would be an algorithm that would chart how well you scored out of 10 and also how many listens you got. And depending on how current, you could make the top 10 and you'd be on the cover page of the site and stuff like that. So as that website progressed, it was on for like a very short period of time, like maybe 2 or 3 years. But as the website progressed, certain reviewers started to become more respected than others. And I got to know a lot of the reviewers that were on the site at the time. And, sort of started to become one of the main reviewers on the website as well, and I started to get the trust of the Roadrunner label executives that were running and behind the site. And I started to get to know those people personally, and I started to get to know a lot of the top reviewers personally, and that's kind of how things started going with that. But then at the same time, I kind of had this like comedy joke punk rock music that I was putting on just to kind of be funny. Like there was a lot of people that would submit music on the site, and it would be like it would be terrible. And we would be talking outside of the website, a huge Facebook group of reviewers, and we would be saying like, have you heard this guy? He's, you know, like, does he actually know that he's bad? Like, is this a joke? And we would be having all of these things. And then I thought, I'm actually going to try to be one of those guys. I'm going to make a couple of really bad songs. I'm going to put it up, and I'm going to see what actually happens. And I kind of did this in secret. You know, the other reviewers that I know didn't necessarily know that it was me. I created a fake profile in the whole 9 yards. And that profile that I created was for this band called the Jack Antonio Project. And it was just a name.
Yeah, we're going to ask you about that.
Yeah, it was a name that I pulled out of thin air. What happened was, like, way in the early days of the internet, my friends and I, we used to troll each other's, like, remember when you had dial-up and you had to go on those billboard sites? My friends and I would troll our other friend's billboard site and use fake names to write on his message board. This is like really early internet days. And we would use the name Jack Antonio as one of the names. So it was just kind of a joke for me to like create this, like, you know, fake thing. It was like kind of us ribbing an entire website of people, trying to trick them into thinking that Jack Antonio was a real guy and that actually wrote horrible music. What ended up happening was people actually liked the Jack Antonio music as bad as it was. And I actually had a higher score as Jack Antonio on the site than I did when I put like serious music. The serious kind of heavy metal music that I put on had a score of 4 out of 10. And Jack's music had a score of 7 out of 10. And when the site shut down in the summer of 2012, Jack was in the like top 2 or 3 on the charts for like alternative, I think, when the site shut down. I should have screenshot the fact that he was I say he because he almost doesn't seem like a real guy. It's like a persona.
That's so funny. That's so funny. Hey,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's almost like it's kind of like a Picasso story in a way, because he was doing like the landscapes for so long, and then at some point he just went, "Oh, forget about it. I'm just gonna do something," you know.
What I found was when I stopped taking myself seriously, that gave me the freedom to just be me and be myself, and not really because I'm a trained musician. Like I have a you know, a music education degree from the University of Regina, so I think when I shed that aspect of myself and I was just willing to go out and do something and just try something, I started to become more successful. And in reality, I think that's just kind of the story of my career, kind of, you know, in the business, was when I started this way back in 2012. It was like, you know, somebody came to me and said, "Hey, we thought your Jack Antonio stuff on the site was funny. Have you ever thought about doing a radio show before?" And I said, "Well, no, I've never done a radio show before, but why not? I mean, you know, what do I need to do? How do I you know, they wanted me to pre-record it, and how do I upload it? How do I do this?" And again, that started out as a joke, and it was actually Jack Antonio as the host. So then, you know, Jack got going as a radio show host all of a sudden. So I had to keep thinking of him like he was an actual guy, even though it was me.
Yeah.
And then people started saying, "Hey, does Jack Antonio do interviews? We'd really love it. There's this festival coming up in Yellowknife, and we'd love it if Jack interviewed, you know, this indie band or whatever that's coming up." And I was like, why not? I mean, I never really intended this Jack Antonio thing to be an interview show, but sure. And then I was like, well, Bruce Coburn's coming to this festival. Ron Sexsmith is coming to this festival. While I'm interviewing this band over here, why don't I actually see if I can interview the headliners? Yeah. And everything just snowballed. Like, you know, I think I was in my 16th show when I interviewed a huge hero of mine, and especially my wife's, Jan Arden. I was like, I'm going to see if I can get Jan Arden now. What the heck?
Yeah.
when I got that Janet Arden interview, she said to me, persistence is bigger than talent. I remember asking her, hey, what's a piece of advice that you can give to somebody in the industry? She said, persistence is bigger than talent. And I think that's huge for anybody doing anything, really. I mean, of course, you need a certain measure of talent and training to do it. But if you're determined and you set those goals for yourself, you never know what you might actually accomplish. And I remember early on, right at the beginning, I was like, okay, so who are my heroes? If I'm going to start doing this interview thing, like who are some of the people that I want to get on the phone? And I think in October of 2012, I was talking to Dee Snider on the phone of Twisted Sister. And I thought, I'm going to keep reaching and just see where this goes. And I thought it would be so cool if I got somebody from the original Kiss lineup. They don't necessarily have to be in the band right now. It could be Ace or Peter, it could be, or it could be somebody still in Kiss. It could be Gene or Paul. So by 2016, I ended up actually interviewing Gene Simmons for the first time. And then a few months later, I ended up being lucky enough to interview him the second time.
Okay. How was that? How was that interview?
He's a highly intelligent man, and he knows exactly what he wants to talk about. And he's a super nice guy, pretty good dude, but just, if he's got something that he's going to sell you, he will talk about it. And of course, the reason why,
you will buy it.
Yeah, well, exactly. And that's how the business works. So I honestly don't fault him by that. But that's kind of the way it was both times. The first time we were talking about a tour, so he made sure that he got in his little talking points about the tour, and I kind of ducked and weaved and dodged around his tour comments and managed to get a few things in on my own. And then the second time, he was selling this giant Vault box set. I don't know if you heard of this. It was a 10 CD box set of his kind of like solo recordings that he had been keeping around for a long time. And he was, here I am, like 3 years after that, and he was still talking about the damn thing.
Selling them.
I don't think I was allowed to say that word. Sorry about that.
Well, I know what you mean, because I never saw Kiss live, but one day one day in Toronto, I went through my whole Kiss phase and stuff, but one day in Toronto, I'm on my way to the gym in Yorkville. I'm walking down Hazelton Lanes, and I think Paul Stanley's in Toronto doing, is it Phantom he was there for, the musical?
I think so,
He's there doing Phantom of the Opera. And there's all these outside patio restaurants. And I'm walking and I think, geez, that looks like Paul Stanley sitting there eating lunch. And I'm walking, I get closer, and my mind's going, oh, do I stop and say hi, or what do I do? Do I be like a total nerd?
I was with you, I think.
Do I be like a total nerd? I just nodded, and he nodded, and I just kept walking. But anyways, I always
tell you, go up to them.
You do.
Say hi.
You always say, go talk to them. Go say hi. I just feel like, they want to be left alone. They don't want to be
I talked to a band once that Gene was thinking about signing them on their on his own like independent label. I think Cobra and the Lotus might have been originally signed on that label too. I don't know if you've heard of that band, but anyway, this was a different band. They were called Hey Ocean, and I guess Gene's daughter Sophia got wind of Hey Ocean, and so Gene said, "I'm flying down to Calgary. I'd like to talk to you guys about signing." And I guess they're walking down the streets in Calgary, and apparently traffic was stopping because it was literally Gene Simmons that was walking down the sidewalk, just like it was a normal day, and everybody was like, "Hey, that's that guy from Kiss." They certainly like command a certain level of respect, and of course if you have seen one of their shows, there's a lot of big explosions, so you can never go wrong with that. A lot of fire and explosions. Spitting blood, that still happens.
So as a rock journalist, I know we talked about Lester Bangs before, but is he one of your idols, sort of say? I mean, you talk about Cream magazine, and is there guys like Robert Christgau from that era that would be sort of people you look up to as rock journalists, or are you? I know you have a very high ethic, and you've done. You want to give the band a fair shake, usually, so. Yeah,
for sure. Well, I think, basically with the North North Sask Music Zine. I got to get my own zine name right. I think like our goal is that we want to create our own like unique style and look for the magazine. So we like to have our own photos as much as possible, especially on the cover. Like, you're seeing a shot of one of our good friends, JJ Voss.
JJ's awesome for sure.
Yeah, like we do have our own, I guess, I call her my staff photographer, but Deanna of Contingent Colors Photography is also my wife. So, I suppose membership has its privileges, but she takes a lot of our photos and if possible, I mean, it's been difficult with COVID, but we've also tried to do our own, staged shoots. But strangely enough, there's not really a specific like rock writer that I like, hold to high esteem or that I read. I mean, of course, I'm familiar with, the legend of Lester Bangs, but I can't say I've ever actually like sat down and read any of his stuff. And I mean, maybe this will sound a little pretentious, but even when I was doing the punk rock thing with Jack Antonio, it was like, of course, I had my own, musical, idols and so on and so forth, but I never really wanted, like, I wanted something that would be very specifically and uniquely my own, So when it comes to writing, I think, I always think back to like rock magazines of the 80s and just kind of, when I was a kid, kind of what I would like to read in my own writing. And there's a certain like snappy, punchy style. There's a little bit of, flowery aspect to the language, but I don't sit every day and leaf through rock magazines. I do have a few subscriptions, like Paul Zolo of American Songwriter, for instance. I'm a big fan of his work. And there's another magazine that I'm subscribed to right now called Mojo, and they do a lot of great classic rock writing. So, I mean, I have people mentoring me as well, like Robert Duncan, the former editor of Cream, managing editor of Cream magazine. I think I want to say maybe around 74 or 75, he was at Cream. A close personal friend of Lester Bangs, incidentally. He's somebody that I look up to. I think like I just like the overall aesthetic of Cream. It was kind of this like little publication that was like really proudly local. Like they were located in Detroit, so they really worked hard at putting over the music that was happening in Detroit of that time period. And I think, they didn't worry about whether or not they were trained writers or they weren't trained writers. They just wanted to like put over the bands, and they wanted to write, they wanted to do great writing and do it the way they wanted. There was like a sort of punk rock aesthetic to it as well. So even though you see guys like JJ Voss and Jake and Ira, of course, young bluegrass guys from Park Valley, which is, in northern Saskatchewan, near Big River. Even though you see guys like that on the cover, like, we try to get a certain look about the cover and even a certain style of writing. And I'm really proud of all of our writers that we have, currently on staff, like Will, and then, Mark Allard will. We have two guys named Mark, and then one of the guys named Mark also has the last name of Allard Will, so it gets a little confusing even for me. We've got Darius Shandelka, who's up in La Ronge doing really great work for us. We brought in a young fella, Mark Hodgman, who is with a band called the Hightailers, who started writing for us recently. And we have a reviewer as well, because a lot of us are so firmly entrenched in the scene that we have a reviewer that doesn't even live in Canada. His name is Andrew, who does a lot of the reviews for us as well. That way, we, if somebody doesn't like something that Andrew wrote, we can be, well, what can you do? You're going to go find them in the United States.
Good plan. So you're a published writer for Exclaim as well. You wrote for
That's right.
National Publication.
Yeah.
Is that ongoing?
It's off and on, yeah. Like it depends on like if there's bands, like if there's bands in Saskatchewan that are getting ready to release. Sometimes I pitch, like JJ Voss, for instance, is somebody that I've reviewed for Exclaim. I'm trying to think of some of the others. The North Sound, who currently have like multiple SCMA nominations in front of them. I've reviewed their record. Coulter Wall, I've reviewed his as well. So yeah, I started writing for Exclaim because actually my first foray into print journalism was writing entertainment related, mostly music related articles for the Prince Albert Daily Herald. And as I learned kind of under the tutelage of my editor there, I was able to, branch out, and I thought, well, if I can do this for the local PA paper, maybe like I can do something for Exclaim as well.
Right.
So I submitted some of my writing to them, and that's how I ended up doing reviews. And I think that's only been about a year and change that I've been doing that. And I think I've done maybe 12 to 14 reviews for them. So that's been pretty cool. A couple of which have been like in print and have gone out all around, whatever their distribution is. But a lot of the times Exclaim will just be like in music stores. There'll be a pile of Exclaim magazines in there. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I know you can pick it up at the Vinyl Exchange on 2nd Avenue still. I think they get it in there.
Yeah.
Now, in Yellowknife, we had Dave Bedini on last week, and he's
right.
I'm working on his last book in Yellowknife at the newspaper there called the Yellowknifer. Is that what it is? Or
oh, Dave, where do I start?
Would you met him up there in Yellowknife at that time?
Yeah, I did. He was around for a summer, maybe about 4 to 6 months. I inadvertently ran into him once. I was working out of this little log cabin radio station called CKLB, and I was pre-recording my show through there for a while and making use of their equipment. And I remember, pulling up to the station one day, and Dave was sitting there talking to, the station manager. Yellowknife is an interesting place because you can be super well known outside of Yellowknife, but when you come into Yellowknife, it's kind of like it's almost like you're just another guy, or sometimes, like, if people aren't necessarily familiar with your body of work, like, maybe to a certain extent in the case of Dave, it would be like, oh, who's this guy? It's one of those, like, you ain't from around here, are you, kind of scenarios. And I think, if my memory serves me correctly, I think Dave wrote a book maybe about his time in Yellowknife. Yeah. I think, maybe. Am I right there, Johnny?
It's called Midnight Light.
Yeah.
I think it's his most recent book.
Yeah, it's his last book.
Yeah, like, and I remember, like, I haven't read the book myself, so I can't really, like, comment with any kind of critique. The only thing that I remember hearing about it was that he got some of the place names wrong.
Oh.
That's the only thing that I know about Dave Bedini's book. But I think I remember coming up the stairs and thinking, oh, that's Dave Bedini. Cool. He must be here trying to, figure out what the deal is on this end of the town. Because Yellowknife is kind of split into two different places. There's a main part of Yellowknife, and then there's an island, and you kind of have to go across this little bridge. And then at the very end of this island, there's a Dene, like, indigenous community that lives at the very end of the island. So the radio station that I was working out of, CKLB FM, was one of the indigenous owned radio stations. So he was there, I guess, trying to, find out some of those aspects to the city. And, it was great to, get the mainstream attention that Yellowknife did for a very short period of time. Like, there was, Ice Pilots, and there was Ice Road Truckers that was also going through there. And then, there was another reality show through Yellowknife too. And it was about, it was about houseboaters. But of course, like, if you lived in Yellowknife, it's like a little bubble. It's like if you take 20,000 people and you just basically plop them in the middle of nowhere, everybody knows everybody. So it's kind of like, you could be super famous with, like the reality show people, everybody knew who they were. And you could be super famous outside of town. But if you run into, if you run into one of the guys from the shows, it'll be like, oh yeah, that's the guy that was on Ice Road Truckers. Okay, cool. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
Okay, so you come to Saskatchewan. You get a gig as a teacher, teaching band in Kinistino.
Yeah, I teach at two schools. I teach band in Kinistino, and every second day I'm also here in PA at John Diefenbaker Public School, just down the road from where I live. Yeah.
Keeping the music alive for kids. That's
no
always
kidding.
admirable.
Yeah.
So you get here, and do you feel that there's a need for music paper like you've got going, or do you just something that you just want to do regardless?
Like, yeah.
Do you sense a need in the community, and you're here to fill it, or is it just a form of expression and you hope people pay attention?
Yeah, I mean, maybe yes to both points. I think part of the reason too why I started the magazine is because I pitched a few feature stories to Exclaim, and for good reason, like they were a little too regional. So then I thought, well, if I can't put over some of the the artists in the way that I want to, and similarly with the PA Daily Herald, which is a great local newspaper, it's not like they can pay a freelancer every single week. So I thought there's musicians here that are really deserving of basically having some great writing behind them to help them, advance and move forward in their careers. And, as I got deeper into covering a lot of these musicians, we really got to find out a lot of things about music going on in Prince Albert in particular that we honestly didn't know before. We have 3 writers in Prince Albert, one in Saskatoon, and one in La Ronge, and then of course our guy that does most of our album reviews lives in Rhode Island in the United States.
Yeah, cool. That's awesome. Well, I'll tell you, we hugely appreciate it. Being musicians and being in bands and just it's awesome that you're just getting the music out there. And
right.
I think there is a huge need for it in Saskatchewan. I think there's tons of talent in Saskatchewan.
What I love about it too is it just seems very fluid. It's like I'm writing an article and I'm just going to add it to the episode or the edition or something. It just seems like here's our website, here's our journalistic output. But here, I'm going to add this to it, and you just kind of have this flow, which is really, people should check it out. If you're in Saskatchewan and you haven't checked out this guy's magazine, it's really worthwhile. Good read.
Well, and it's teamwork.
It's community,
everybody.
For sure.
It's community and building a scene in your community or in your city or in your province. It's teamwork with everybody, and
for sure, yeah,
a huge part of it and getting it out there. So yes, please, everybody, check it out. Yeah. North Sask Music Zine.
Now I always go NSMZ.
I know.
Is it Z or Z?
I don't know. It could be either or.
You know what? I honestly don't think all our writers are sort of working in isolation right now. I probably should have like a Zoom call with everybody on it one of these days, but I don't know if we've ever got together. And I mean, I suppose we have to use the Canadian Z, but it was actually Robert Duncan of the former managing editor of Cream magazine that suggested we shorten it to like NSMZ. So it feels like we should be more American and say NSMZ. Originally we were going to call it the Northern Saskatchewan Music Webzine. And again, like the name was so long that there was almost supposed to be this sort of parody, kind of funny aspect to it. But then as we got, into writing articles and going down that rabbit hole of quote unquote real journalism, we thought, well, we need to shorten it to something that's punchy and memorable, and it'll be the North Sask Music Zine now. And then as our big title or whatever, it'll be NSMZ, and that'll kind of be what most people remember us for, because I mean, we are a staunchly like Northern Saskatchewan publication. We do want to like support, artists in Prince Albert and of course over to Saskatoon and points north, but we also want to be able to write about whatever we want to write about. So if that means the odd time we write about somebody from the Queen City or, Moose Jaw or Swift Current or something's going on there, we've done things on Humboldt in the past, which is, south of here. So, we want to support Saskatchewan artists in general, and we want to know what's going on, and we want to hear about your records. We want to hear about your albums. We want to hear about your shows. We just want to know people. We want to get to know people, and we want to, continue to build that kind of very proudly, Saskatchewan aesthetic. And especially in these times where things are tough, we kind of just need to like band together and kind of look around us and realize that, it's cool that those big acts like, in 2019, Judas Priest and Def Leppard and Rob Zombie were all through here, all in like a 4 or 5 month time frame. But I mean, heck, we got really, really great heavy metal bands right here in Saskatchewan, and of course a lot of great country music and roots and folk and great rock and roll. I mean, there's so much here if you just take a second and just look around you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there really is. It's really a hotbed of talent, and it's great. It'll be great to see that people can project their talent from Saskatchewan rather than having to leave to go someplace to do that. And having a guy like you here throwing the Hail Marys out there for bands, that's awesome shit. I can say that word, I guess.
Whoops.
Oops.
Yeah. Well, and I often jokingly, when we were a staff of 3 writers, I often jokingly used to say I was like NSMZ's 3rd best writer. Like, we have so much great talent and writing. I mean, now we've got 5 writers, 5. I've lost count. We're growing so quickly. I mean, not only are we looking to hear from bands, but we're also continuously looking for writers and guest writers, and we have a Facebook page, North Saskatchewan Music Zine, and you can message us if you're a band or an artist that wants your music potentially featured, within our virtual pages, or if you're an aspiring writer. I think that's just important too, is, being a place where we can help writers develop their craft. Even though, I mean, I'm a band teacher, so I sound pretentious talking about people developing as a writer. I mean, I'm developing at the same time. We're all sort of in this and learning together at the same time.
Well, you're a trailblazer, and we need to build the infrastructure in this province so that there's a good entertainment network that is strong and viable, especially in the years to come ahead when we start to recover from this pandemic. Which, by the way, I know you're busy teaching and with the magazine. What are you doing these days to keep yourself sane?
What's crazy? Yeah, that's my studio cat. I swear, anytime I'm doing a video call of any kind, the cat inevitably ends up being in the shot. I just sort of like, she'll just come in, we'll hang out for a second, and then she'll go off on her merry way. You know what's weird is I started collecting. This sounds strange, perhaps, but I started getting really like obsessed with like collecting CDs again. When we moved from Yellowknife, we had to shed a lot of stuff because I mean it's a huge move to go from basically the Arctic all the way down here. Like, it's funny to me when people say that PA is north because to us up in Yellowknife, this is like way south. So we shed a lot of our CDs and huge pieces of furniture. We just had to let everything go, and that purge to us as a family was really important because it allowed us to come to Saskatchewan and kind of build something new. But I've missed kind of having the physical aspect of holding a CD and like actually owning a CD player, which I hadn't owned for 3 or 4 years before we moved here. And during COVID I started to collect CDs again. I haven't stopped collecting vinyl. I've been collecting vinyl I think for about 20 years now, and I like to go into a used record store and discover used vinyl. I don't often buy like the new stuff unless it's like a colored vinyl. I'm sort of like a sucker for that. It's like, oh, look at this Kiss album. It's bright orange, you know.
All right.
All of a sudden I become fascinated in that. But yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing apart from, you know, running a magazine. My wife too, she has a little studio space upstairs now, and she started to record music, and you know, we'll also come together when we want to do some photography stuff when we're working with artists, and you know, we like to put our heads together and you know, work on shoots and locations and argue about shoots and locations and what'll work best for, you know, what artists and stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's been great. That picture up, that's John Antoniuk of Smoke Killer. Unfortunately, that's not our photo, but it's a great show.
Yeah, I saw that on your site, I think.
Yeah. Like sometimes if we can't, I mean, COVID has been so frustrating because sometimes, like, you know, with you guys, for instance, like, you know, Mark took some great shots, but we would have loved to come up ourselves and do our thing and shoot, like, you know, the whole band and work with you guys in that capacity, because there's a lot of fulfillment in working with bands visually, you know, on top of writing with them. You know, like I said, it's all about sort of creating a whole aesthetic to what we're doing, and you know, having the photos and the print to match, and being very proud of our little local scene and trying to support it as much as possible.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, as a musician, it's always exciting to see the photos that the publication took during the interview or for the interview, because you never really know how it's going to turn out. That's a nice aspect to have. So
yeah,
if you guys can continue to do that, that's going to be great. And here you are with Lee Aaron.
Yeah, she's so awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
Funny story about that picture. My kids were actually like, Lee is highly intelligent. I'm sure you guys have met her at least once. So smart. And that picture was taken at Edmonton Rock Music Festival. And, you know, basically at that festival, there's a little green room underneath the stage that has a couple of separate pull-out dressing rooms for the artists. There's a main area, and then there's a couple of separate rooms. So she had the presence of mind. She knew that in the middle of our interview, a band might start playing. So she found this little teeny little like side office underneath the stage, and we went in there, and I was like, is it okay if I bring my kids in there? So my kids sat like super quiet, and I basically sat there and I interviewed Lee Aaron for like 20 minutes, and she was like super good with the kids and everything.
That's cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
Well, you know, again, we're at an hour and a half here, so I think we have to reluctantly say goodbye, because you know,
we'll have to do this again.
It's probably just us three watching right now. No, I don't know. Anyways, now that you're here and we have you in Saskatchewan, we're definitely going to have to do this again and catch up with you, because I know that I like to call it a paper. I don't know why it's not a paper, but I guess, you know, I can call it a paper. That magazine is growing quickly, and I look forward to reading it when it comes out. And I think that your readership is probably going to go.
Yeah.
So, you know, thanks for coming here to Saskatchewan.
Yeah, thank you. This was fun.
Thanks so much, Scott.
I'm not on the other end of an interview very often, so this is.
But you got the whole setup there. I love the headphones, the microphone. You look like you got a show there going on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looks like you're a DJ there.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I started dabbling in video interviews too, like and like you know, showing video interviews to my classroom, especially when we were in our online shutdown last year. So you know, like visually with like things in the background, and even having like, you know, pretty good gear, you know, it's become essential.
Yeah, for sure. No kidding. Well, thank you so much, Scott, for coming on. Thanks for being patient. And we'll be talking to you again real soon, I'm sure.
You bet.
Oh yeah, for sure, without a doubt. I mean, you guys always have interesting and cool things musically going on. So I can well imagine. Of course, we're gearing up. We're on deadlines now. We're about to push out an all heavy metal edition of the magazine, where we got bands and interviews lined up as well. So, look for that. Usually, we release the issue. We're not really set on really hard deadlines, but it'll be out at the end of February at some point. It's basically whenever I get around to putting the whole thing together and putting it up on the site. We'll upload, like, for an edition, we'll upload, like, however many articles we have sort of all at the same time, and we'll have like a cover that we use too. And the cover's actually become a really heavily viewed and shared thing. Like, I think our last cover has almost 100 views on it, the one that we had for Jake and Ira, and I think the one that we took of JJ has close to 100 views on it too. So yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting ride. We also crank out breaking news pieces from time to time. Now that the SCMA awards are coming out, we've got a couple of local artists that we want to highlight, and we have photos on file. So yeah.
Awesome.
That's cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, well, till the next time.
Yes. Till the next
For
time.
sure.
Good work, bud.
Yeah, for sure. We appreciate
All right.
you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much for your support. This was great. This was fun. Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon, mate. All right. Wow.
Wow, we went long.
That was good, though.
Tonight. That was really good. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't think we really have anything more to say. We usually talk about what's going on around town, but
Right.
there hasn't been very much, I'll tell you, because of this pandemic thing that's going on. And so we just want to thank the guests, Andy Curran and Scott Roos, for coming on with us. That was awesome. And so just please subscribe and follow No YXE on YouTube and Facebook. And the Green Room, we also have cool little t-shirts you can go and check out.
Yeah, let's just check here before we go. We had Peggy.
If they're still on with
Peggy
us.
said, "Love that look, Andy." Greg from Harlow Sound, Greg English.
Oh, look at that.
We addressed that
Will.
one. Kathy Allen.
Will said Paul Stanley told a story in a Rolling Stone
Yeah.
interview
That's funny.
about being in Toronto and seeing Johnny Sinclair.
Yeah. That's a good one.
That's a good one.
And Nancy and Tim in Boston.
Oh, sweet.
I know
Hi, guys.
Tim commented about the bar back there. I don't know if you can read that. There's a yellow sticky on that one wine bottle there. Hang on one sec.
Oh, what? And what did he have on it? Okay. He said, hello, Boston. Right on. Okay, so be sure to check in to other No YXE shows. No YXE is this cool online channel, and that's what we're on right now with the Green Room, and we are on every Wednesday nights at 7 o'clock. There's also YXE Sports Podcast, and that's on Monday at 6, every Monday at 6. And there's also a new show called The Voice of Saskatoon, and that's Thursday at 6:30. So that'll be really cool.
That's tomorrow night. We're going to be talking about the
COVID, right?
Yeah.
And some really good stuff on just, what to do and what to look out for and all of that. And then there's Slow TV, YXE, and that's Sunday at 10 a.m. And that's cool. It's just like a real chill. They slowly show.
It was so slow last week, they canceled it.
No, they didn't. Did they cancel?
Due to the cold, actually. They canceled it because it was so cold.
No.
Yeah, things
Really?
are just,
Oh, that's right.
things are moving so slow. That they,
Oh, hey, Shane. Shane said another great
Hey,
show.
Shane, thanks.
Awesome, guys. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. Also, if you're an artist and you have something coming up, then just email us at thegreenroom@noyxe.com, and so we can get you on here. And that's about it. So
Right, and if you're a young artist or a young musician, young writer, Scott Roos from North Sask Music Scene invited you to contact him. So,
yes,
reach out if you want to send him some music or pursue an article or something like that. He's open.
yeah. So you guys have a great week, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Keep rocking and rolling, and be safe out there.
Over and out.